But first, we begin with Biden's feckless policy as it relates to the war on Ukraine waged by Vladimir Putin. He dragged his feet on major sanctions. He dragged his feet on blocking Russian oil imports. He dragged his feet on sending the aid, the lethal aid needed by Ukraine. He dragged his feet on resupplying Ukraine's army with ammo, javelins, stingers, air defense systems. And now he's dragging his feet on the MiG-29 fighter jets that Ukraine desperately needs that Poland wants to give them. He vetoed it. As a result, Ukraine is now struggling to defend its skies, and thousands of innocent civilians are now being murdered with Russian bombs every single day. That Joe Biden is dithering and waiting means more innocent men, women, and children will die. How many more mass graves do we need to see before we recognize that he's targeting civilians? Now, we're also witnessing a modern-day genocide at the hands of an evil, murdering thug. And why some people defend him, I have no idea. But as Speaker Gingrich, who will join us in a moment, points out, quote, Biden says no to Ukraine's Zelensky and keeps America in the back seat. So make no mistake, what happens in Ukraine will have consequences all over the world. And you better believe that other hostile regimes like China, the mullahs in Iran, they're watching, all while Joe is forging ahead with this idiotic new nuclear deal with Iran, still being negotiated, believe it or not, by Russia and China. How does that make sense? Or as the National Review put it, quote, Biden caves on sanctions over Russia's war crimes against Ukraine to preserve Russia's sponsorship of terrorist Iran's nuclear program. By the way, Putin may get a $10 billion nuclear facility that he builds in Iran out of this deal, according to reports. So an important question tonight. How can anyone on earth actually, at this moment, be trusting Russia to broker a deal with the Iranians and our country? I cannot emphasize enough. This is madness. This is insanity on a whole new level. But back to Russia's invasion. Now, if Ukraine is able to win this war, it will be in spite of Joe Biden, and it's a big if, but the benefit would be America's enemies hopefully will start thinking twice before waging future conflicts. I doubt that's going to be the outcome because they see a weak, frail, cognitive mess in Joe Biden. They don't see the smartest person in Kamala Harris, and Nancy Pelosi has her own cognitive struggles. And now more than ever, we need the policy of Reagan and Trump, and that's peace through strength. And again, I'm not talking about starting World War III. Under no circumstances should America ever put a single boot on the ground. Should we at all ever enforce a no-fly zone? That's a non-starter. We should have learned a lot in the last 20 years, if not the last 60 years. We cannot and will not be the world's police force. And I have said this for days. Joe Biden needs to get off his ass and get Ukraine those MiGs, let Poland give them the MiGs, and anything else they need militarily. They seem very willing and able and capable of defending themselves with the right equipment. And instead of Joe's veto of the Poland MiGs, he needs to get out of the way and let every country do what they believe is the right thing to do. This is Europe. It's their backyard. They should have a greater sense of urgency over the U.S. Let's be clear. This won't escalate into Russia's invasion into a global conflict. Now, let me give you a little history here. During the Korean War, the Vietnam War, maybe you don't know this, the Soviet Union at the time, they supplied North Korea and North Vietnam with dozens of MiG fighter jets. And by the way, didn't lead to a world war, didn't lead to a nuclear holocaust. Russia already set the standard for MiGs, and unfortunately, the Biden administration doesn't seem to have a firm grasp on history or foreign policy. Now, we are being led by truly incompetent people, stupid people. This is bad for the world. It is bad to have a weak United States president. But today, the president took time out of his busy schedule to reassure we, the American people, that he's not stupid. See if you believe him. You decide.
Bless me, Father, for I'm about to sin. Well, I just want you to know, I may be Irish, but I'm not stupid. I married Dominic Giacoppa's daughter. Okay?
That's so reassuring, isn't it? Now, despite what we just heard, I can assure you that being Irish and stupid has no correlation. It is St. Patrick's Day, even though Joe Biden is both. Now, over on Capitol Hill, it's even worse. Today, Nancy Pelosi made a valuable contribution to Ukraine with a dramatic reading of a poem written by U2's Bono, although she didn't quite say Bono. Take a look.
What you saw yesterday was history. Later at the lunch, just maybe you might want to watch, I'm going to be reading a poem written by Bono about Ukraine, which you might find interesting.
But in sorrow and fear, that's when saints can appear to drive out those old snakes once again. And they struggle for us to be free from the psycho in this human family. Ireland's sorrow and pain is now the Ukraine, and St. Patrick's name is now Zelensky. About that.
Wow. All right. Despite what it might seem, not everyone in the Democratic Party has been in the Washington swamp for 150,000 years. In fact, they actually take their marching orders from this new person, the real Speaker of the House. Nancy Pelosi is Speaker in name only. Take a look at this.
We have a crisis of missing and murder of Indigenous and Black women in the United States. Today, I want to discuss part of this crisis that is all too often overlooked, but whose evidence shows that there's a very meaningful connection here. The correlation between fossil fuel extraction sites and abductions and murders of Indigenous women across the United States.
Fossil fuels, abductions, and murders of Indigenous people. Okay, Congresswoman AOC and a few other, climate cult eco-socialists in Congress, they're calling the shots now in the Democratic Party. That's why Joe Biden won't drill and frack and do the things that we could do to be energy independent. He's a coward that is now refusing to stand up to that person, her squad, and the entire Democratic New Green Deal radical socialist party that he's leading. As a result, low, middle-income Americans, they are suffering severely economically. 40-year high in inflation. Joe caused that. Joe Biden doesn't seem to care about those Americans. Middle-class Joe, that's all a shtick. It's a lie, because if he cared, he would make energy independence a top priority. He inherited it from Donald Trump. Joe only seems to care about himself and his family. Joe Biden is not a leader. I doubt he knows today is Thursday. He's a self-involved career politician, basically taking talking points from his staff. And, of course, he loves the power and the wealth and always has and always will. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.